Hello everyone, welcome to sqadia.com. Our topic for today is lab diagnosis of viruses. We are at section 3 of this topic, and in this section we'll be discussing the newer detection techniques. We'll start by discussing the radioimmunoassay and then move on to ELISA and immunoelectron microscopy. So, radioimmunoassay is basically a technique in which a radio-labeled antigen is bound to an antibody. And if there is a presence of a homologous antigen or the virus inside the cell, then that virus will actually displace the radio-labeled antigen and will bind itself to the antibody. And we can detect the amount of displaced radio-labeled antigens, and we can identify the type of infection, and we can identify the stage of infection as well. So if the virus and antibody are homologous, there is less antibody remaining to bind to the radio-labeled virus or the radio-labeled antigen. If you look closely at the figure, you can see that we have an antibody and it's bound to a radiolabel or a radioactive antigen. If we add the unlabeled antigen, which in this case will be our virus, into this sample, then the radioactive antigen will be displaced by the unlabeled virus if the virus is homologous to the antibody. And this complex can then be precipitated with the anti-immunoglobulin, which is a second type of antibody which will be present. This is a bound antibody, and this antibody can actually be complementary to the first antibody, and it can bind to that antibody. And thus all those bound antibodies will actually help us identify the amount of radio-labeled antigens that are displaced or the amount of viruses that are present inside a particular sample. And so in radioimmunoassay, the radio signals help us identify the presence or absence of homologous viruses. And by homologous, what we mean is the viruses that are actually complementary to the antibody that is present in that particular assay. The second detection method, which is probably one of the most commonly employed method for viral detection these days, is called enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay, also commonly called as ELISA. ELISA is commonly employed because of the specificity of this assay to the type of viruses that needs to be identified. So to identify a virus, a known antibody is bound to a surface membrane. And then if the virus is present in the patient's sample, it will bind to that antibody. The sample of the antibody, which is linked to that to the virus, is then linked to an enzyme, and then once the enzyme binds to it, the conversion of the a substrate is added, and the amount of bound enzyme is determined, and the conversion of substrate to a product basically gives away a signal that can be identified and that can be used to identify a virus. There are different types of ELISAs that are currently performed. The first one is the direct ELISA. You can see that we have an antigen and an antibody, and then we add a substrate to that, add an enzyme and a substrate to that. And that enzyme, basically, if the antigen and antibodies are bound, that is, the antibody is bind to the virus, this sample of antibody can be linked to an enzyme. And then if we add the substrate, then the amount of bound enzyme can be determined by the conversion of the substrate into a product. Similarly, in indirect ELISA, there are two antibodies that are bound to each other. The first one is bound to an antigen on the surface membrane, and the second antibody basically binds to the first antibody. And the second antibody is bound to the enzyme, and after the addition of substrate, you can identify the conjugated secondary antibody or the amount of bound enzyme and or the amount of product that is being converted. So this is quite similar to that of direct ELISA, but in case of direct ELISA, the enzyme is bound to the first or the primary antibody, whereas in this case, the enzyme is bound to the secondary antibody. Then we have another enzyme type of ELISA, which is called a sandwiched ELISA. The phenomena is again the same. The principle is same. That is, the antibody has to bind to the antigen or the known or the virus that we need to identify, and then there is another antibody which is not directly bound to the enzyme, but rather it binds or complements another antibody which is bound to the enzyme, and after the substrate addition, we can determine the bound enzymes, and we can determine the viruses. So since there are three antibodies and they are sandwiched together, that is why this is called a sandwich ELISA. And here you can see that in comparative ELISA, what happens is we have an inhibitor antigen, and this is basically used to identify again a type of virus, and this basically employs the same method of identifying the signal or identify the bound enzymes that are present in a particular sample, or to indirectly identify the substrate conversion into the products. Then we have the immunoelectron microscopy. If the antibody is homologous to the virus, then the aggregate of these virus antibody complexes can be seen under the electron microscope. So since there is a formation of a complex of antibody and an antigen, which is the virus, these complexes can be visualized under an electron microscope, and this method is known as immunoelectron microscopy. What happens is, as you can see here, we have an antigen and we have primary and secondary antibodies that are bound to it. In this case, what we did was the secondary antibody had a gold particle that was bound to it, and if these and the secondary antibody binds to the primary antibody when the antigen antibody complex is formed, and this complex can be visualized under the electron microscope. Even if the gold particles are not employed or not used, we can actually visualize the complexes under the electron microscope. But this gives a more specific signal, and we can calculate or identify the viral titer inside a sample. As you can see here, there's a metallic silver deposits, which are actually these black spots that you can see inside the cells. And these spots are actually showing the presence of the viruses that are bound to the antibody. And so these are giving away the signals that can be visualized under the electron microscope. You can see here there are no black spots, which means that these cells are not infected. The problem is with this type of technique, or with immunoelectron microscopy, is the sensitivity, which is in certain cases you cannot identify the type of virus, and thus you cannot bind a particular antibody to the virus. Second is the resolution. We know that we need to have a really exact or a really good resolution in order to see the complexes that are formed inside a cell. As you know, the size of virus is really, really small, so it's really hard to identify those small complexes inside a large animal cell. And the other one is the quantitation, which is we cannot actually quantify the antigens directly. Rather, we are actually just looking at vague spots, and we're not really sure if one spot is showing one complex or if these spots are actually showing multiple complexes of viruses that are bound together. And then there's since in certain cases there is no specific binding, so we can actually detect background signals as well, and that background noise can actually hinder in the quantitation as well as the identification of the virus in a particular sample. So that's why immunoelectron microscopy is not commonly employed to see the virus or to identify the virus, but in certain cases, mostly in labs or in experiments, this particular method is used. So in this section, we covered the radioimmunoassay, in which we detected the viruses with the help of a radio signal. Then we saw the ELISA, which is the enzyme-linked immunosorbent assay. As the name suggests, there is an enzyme that is bound to the antibody, and that bound enzyme can help us detect and identify and also quantify the virus that is present in a sample. And then we have immunoelectron microscopy, in which we are actually trying to directly visualize the complexes that are formed by the virus with an antibody. And we saw how there are certain problems with this particular diagnosis technique. That's all from this section. Thank you for watching sqadia.com.